Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev. Yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam. So that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find. Right, I am actually here. I have no idea what tab it would have been you were getting sound from if it felt like I had a tab that I needed to mute. I don't actually know. I don't have any, apart from Twitch alerts, I don't have any browser sources in the scene. Oh, and my overlay. But so therefore, my normal browser tabs shouldn't be doing anything here, especially because when I have them set up for streaming, I have them all muted. So I don't know, that's really weird. But it's great to have you both here and everyone else who's already lurking but not saying so. But I'm specifically saying hi to Goriki and Aranel because they have made their presence known. And yes, Aranel, thank you for being here. And also, please enjoy just lurking. Hang on, now I've got something not happening where it's meant to happen. And for those of you who don't know him, Goriki is an excellent bot smasher extraordinaire, and does streaming as well, but excellent at moderating. Others are also good at moderating, but he specializes in dealing with bots and other nasties that we don't really want on our channels. So please, if you haven't already, go and follow him. If you can afford to, please go and subscribe to him. Find a way to subscribe to him, please. And go and pay attention to the things that he instructs us on to do with moderating, especially for dealing with bots. So there you go. That's all those sorts of things. We are going to just casually sit back and watch a little wee mini video about how to make the most of our time here. So here you go. Hopefully it'll come up soon.
Hello, and welcome to the stream. I'm Jev. Now, let's talk about our 6 things to enjoy the stream. Number 1, get your drink. It can be water, whatever you like, but, take care of yourself and hydrate. Number 2, when I hydrate, you should as well. Did you hydrate just now? Number 2, get snacks or maybe a whole meal. It depends on your time of day and your own habits. Again, take care of yourself. Be hydrated and eat what you need to eat. Number 4, get comfy, whether it's cooler or warmer, just something to cuddle perhaps. But be comfortable. That's also important. It's good physically and mentally. Number 5, have something to write with and write on. It can be paper, it can be anything you like. Memo, post-it notes, whatever you like. This advert not associated with post-it notes in any way, shape, or form. Disclaimer. Now, sit back, listen, and enjoy. Feel free to engage in chat. Do the puzzle over here or, down there somewhere. Play Jeff Bingo. I do silly things like, I do silly things. Or you can spend pages and make me wear silly things like funny ears, like this one. Have a good stream.
I'm back. I'm glad I wore a bright coloured top today. I'm finding as I get older that with my grey hair, and it's not white pale skin, but it's not strongly coloured skin, any of these sort of plain backgrounds, I really just sort of blend in. So today's t-shirt is a Quest Sprout t-shirt. Quest Sprout being who the BBC reckoned that we all needed more of during lockdowns. It came out that somebody over in BBC decided that was what we needed. Something positive, something sweet, something without lots of other inferences. Thank you, coleslaw. Yes, I love the purple too. This is one of my preferred versions of purple. I do like one that has a little bit more blue in it as well. I like pinkish purple, but nowhere near as much. There's just something about those strong, rich colours that I really like. So, yeah, this is what you got. And Quest Sprout, because he's rather faded and machine worn, washing machine, is not actually green screening out, thankfully. So don't forget, we've got these keywords here today. We've got house, miner, and horse. Anytime I read one of those 3 words, use the exclamation commands here, either key or K word, and then also type in which of those words it is that it was. Now the whole lot will either get a little animated GIF behind it, or it'll get highlighted and flash at us. That's so that we all remember we've got to hydrate. But it's often really good idea to put what the word is that you just heard from the story, because otherwise everyone's like, huh? No, I don't remember that. And yes, I do have my water bottles all filled up and ready to go. I've got house, I've got miner, and I've got horse. Miner is my other one of those with the opposite colourway. And horse has had a little bit of a tidy up, bit of a trim. Additionally, I have some yummy things to drink today. Yes, well-loved t-shirt indeed. I have, yes, I'm showing you the brand name, the Monster Juice version, Mango Loco. I do like their juice drinks. They don't have quite the same, they've got a fuller flavour. The straight energy drinks, their ones are quite good, but they're still very much energy drink flavour, I guess you can say it is, which tends to be a bit thinner and more acidic. Weird bits of fluff on my desk. I know what they're from. But these ones don't have any added sugar, I think. I'm just checking. No, they don't have any added sugar. No, they do. They have sucralose. Sucrose and sucralose, which are both more natural versions of a lot of other sweeteners, being actual sugar-based, as well as the fructose that is naturally in the fruits. I like the juice ones because they have things like mango, apple, orange, guava, pineapple, and passion fruit juices and purees in them to give them the flavour. So that's really good. So yeah, they're higher sugar content, but a lot of the sugars in them are actually from the fruits. It does say it's got sucrose in, but it doesn't say how much. But yeah, I like the fact that they are a lot more real-based flavours. And then the other one I've got is the Papillon one. They're the only two juice ones I've seen in New Zealand. I know they've got other ones, but I haven't seen them yet. They're probably available in the city rather than up where I live, which is technically the city, but it's not. So I've got my drink to have with me, and for something to eat, I have a persimmon today, and a non-astringent persimmon, one of the modern style persimmons, rather than the ones which are the astringent persimmons that you have to leave to go all pulpy before you eat them. Those ones are really yummy. They have a much stronger flavour, which I really like, but these ones will do that if you leave them, but they don't have the same strength of flavour, the richness of flavour. So key word for today is probably flavour. How do I spell it? Persimmon? Is that the one that you want? Persimmon, Persimmon. I know a lot of other people call them persimmons. I call them persimmons, not persimmon. They're not by the guy whose name is Simon. I don't know how they're meant to be said. I call them persimmons. Not pear, but per. P-E-R. Whereas pear is P-E-A-R or P-A-I-R, but the fruit is P-E-A-R. So yeah, I think they're originally from somewhere in what Europeans would call the Far East, but to me is just Asia. Probably China, Japan, and possibly one of the other Asian nations as well. Is it flavoured like a berry? Kind of. I'm going to cut this one open so you can see what the inside's like. These ones don't have any seeds in them. When I find there it is, my craft knife. My little craft knife or my big craft knife? I'm not sure. I'll pull them both out and decide. I eat them often a little bit like I would eat an apple. So like this one hasn't been peeled. You can eat the skin, which is not a bad thing to do. It's not going to cause you any harm. It's not as fibrous as the peel on a kiwi fruit, because it also doesn't have that fuzz on. But a lot of people will peel them and then eat them. But most people, I think, cut them into segments and peel them and then eat them as ready-to-go slices. Whereas for me, it's like, there's nothing wrong with the skin. Why do you have to get rid of it? Or I will leave it whole and then eat it that way. But I'm going to cut this one in half and show you what they look like inside. These ones, like I said, don't have the pips in them. Just because for commercial purposes, most fruit that has larger sized pips or stones, the seeds for them, don't sell as well as ones that have lesser pips and stones or less of them. It's like if you get mandarin, or, the little we call them mandarins in New Zealand. Some people call them mandarin oranges. The ones that look like mini oranges, but usually they're a little bit flatter. And the preferred ones that most people in New Zealand get are the easy peel ones. But there are some other ones which have a much stronger flavour, very rich flavour, but the skin is harder to get off them. But those other ones that have more flavour have a lot of pips in them. And the pips are a big part of why people actually don't buy them as much, plus the fact that they're harder to peel. Goriki's saying, I find it like a mild apricot with a hint of cinnamon. Oh, I hadn't really thought of it that way. Most of the apricots I'm familiar, yes, mild would be a good way to put it. Most of the apricots I'm familiar with are very acidic because we don't tend to get them when they're really ripe, because they get freighted up from the bottom of the South Island and they get picked too early to really have that richness of flavour that an apricot has. So this is one cut in half. Very boring, very plain. There's not a great strong seed area being defined in there. But also, if you get the ones which are non-astringent like this is, but other varieties that have more seeds in, the seeds actually are about the size of the end of my finger. and they will be in there, and they will take up, there's several of them, and they take up quite a lot of room. So it doesn't have the strong apricotiness of apricot. It's about the only way I can explain it. They have when they're really just perfectly right for eating, not ripe. They will have a beautiful, strong orange color on the outside, but they're still crisp. Not as crisp as an apple, but still quite crisp. If you wait a little bit longer, they will be softer. I like them when they've still got that crispness to them. So here you go. See if we can do some food ASMR for you. I don't know if you heard the crunch. But they're quite sweet without being sickly sweet. I like them because they're fresh and they've got this. But I just store them on the bench in a bowl. I don't put my fruit in the fridge because I don't like eating really cold fruit. And a lot of people don't realise that the colder something is, the less flavour you get out of it. Or the flavour is modified by the coldness because your mouth perceives the fragrances in something differently, and so does your nose. Yeah, it does. It's really good. So fruits, I don't bother refrigerating unless it's something like strawberries or grapes to keep them fresh for longer. And then if I want to eat them, I will usually take them out and let them come nearer to room temperature before I eat them because they've got a more flavour to them, which I like. Anyway, so there you go. That's my snacks and drinks for today, all sorted out. Is there anything else that I needed to tell you about? I'm concentrating really hard here, trying to remember. I will, see if you can find them. They tend to be slightly cooler climate fruit. Now's the perfect time of year for us in New Zealand. So it's autumn, fall. If you get really cold winters, then it's probably really early autumn, but it's definitely an autumn fruit. They've had time to grow because they're a good size. It's not like a tiny little berry sort of thing, but they're yummy. Well, if you like that sort of thing, they're yummy. If you are around an old part of a town, it's not uncommon for older people to have them in their backyards, but they will be the astringent ones, which you do not eat them raw. Well, do not eat them until they've gone mushy. And it goes kind of like a gel that hasn't set, the texture, when they actually do change like that, when they get ripe enough to eat, the astringent sort. Otherwise, your mouth will feel like it has had all of the liquid sucked out of it, and there's more being sucked out, and all the surfaces feel like they're trying to stick together in your mouth. That's what they do. They were popular everywhere I lived in Japan. I've got a feeling that they're actually a Japanese fruit originally. I'm not sure. I feel like they are. But they were very popular when my grandmother used to love them, and she would have them sitting on the windowsill just turning, and the skin would would stop being as shiny, but they get so they've almost got a glow because the inside of them goes translucent, not transparent, translucent. So it starts to look like more of a gel. And it's got this sort of a texture to it, and then you scoop them out and eat them with a teaspoon, and it's a much richer flavour than these ones are. These ones are yummy for the crunch and the flavour and the texture, whereas the old varieties are really yummy for the strength of the flavour. It's not an overpowering one, it's just there's more of it. It's like when you eat these ones, it's like I want more in my mouth to get more of the flavour, but yeah. No, you can't, whereas the old ones. But a lot of young people don't like them because they're one of those gooey foods when you have them that way. And you usually, what you would do with the old ones is you would wait until they were soft on the outside, and then you'd pull or cut where the calyx is on the top out of it, and then make that hole a bit bigger, and then you'd scoop through that hole to get all this lovely, yummy stuff out of the inside. But yeah, like I say, they're a very old-fashioned fruit in a lot of ways. I'm just going to have a wee mouthful of my mango, which is nothing like that. Anyway, so I'm trying to think. I'm sure there was something else I was going to tell you about. I've got that going, and for those of you who are very observant, you may or may not notice that the little white line that was off the end of the A there, going off to the side, is no longer there. Because I took the bottom off it and coloured it in with a black marker. It's the wire that provides the electricity for the light. And it says kia ora, and if you want to know what kia ora means, type it in, Kiaora, with an exclamation mark at the beginning in chat, and you'll get my explanation of what it means. It's a Maori name, Maori word. It's actually two Maori words that are commonly said together. Anyway, it's a greeting, but it's a more informal greeting than some of the others. Like I could say haere mai, but that's very formal. And this is not a formal space. There are a whole lot of other greetings. When I was looking at what I was going to do for streaming, I was thinking, well, what can I do that's more specifically Kiwi? And I remember there's a whole bunch of different phrases used as a Māori greeting. So I thought I better actually check the accuracy because they've got different uses. And the one I was going to use was a formal greeting to one person. And I'm thinking like, no, but this is me greeting a whole lot of people. Then there's another version which it starts the same, but it's got an extra word at the end of it, which is a formal greeting to 2 or 3 people. And then there's another one which is to a crowd. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to remember what the differences are. I'm probably going to say the wrong one. And that really, it irks me if someone uses something inappropriately that should know better, unless they're doing it very deliberately. And so if it irks me, I shouldn't do it to other people either. Not that I've got lots of Māori speakers who turn up here, but just if I did, I don't want to go really annoying them because I have butchered up their language, because it's not actually my language. I didn't grow up speaking Māori. I learnt a few words at school, which we used to do. And the way I learnt to pronounce some of the words is completely different to what that's pronounced these days because of regional accents. Not my accent, but Māori regional accents. And there's different people who've worked to get the Māori language a lot more recognised and accepted. It is actually one of our official languages in New Zealand, but it's the people who've done the hardest work to get it into more general circulation have a particular pronunciation set, which is slightly different for certain sounds than the ones where I was learning it from. Because the recordings that we used to use at school were done by certain people from a certain location, which is not the same group of people who, not from the same place, that the group of people who really pushed through for general acceptance of it as a language in New Zealand. It can be worked on back in the shop. It can be worked on back in the shop. Your words, yes. Yes, definitely needs work back in the shop. Anyway, so that's why I've got that sign there, because it is a New Zealand, a common New Zealand greeting. And kia ora is definitely more in line with the sort of people we are and where we are and the relaxedness of it. So, yeah. I think that's it. I can't think of anything else at the moment. I'll probably think of it later on, the other things that I was going to talk about. I don't need to. Let's get on with it. We've had tips. We've had intro, which reminds me, let's just make sure that those are turned off over here so they don't accidentally run. If I do, for some strange reason, change scenes. Get my book out. It is nicely charged because I had it charging last time and left it on until it finished. Always do that. I delighted somebody the other day. I said, because they like reusing, keeping on using old technology rather than having it thrown away. when it still works properly. And I said, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because he'd been looking at one of our coffee grinders, one of the old Dutch ones that I've got, which I've shown you guys before. And he was just admiring the fact that we have it and it still gets used and things like that. And I said, oh, yeah, another thing like that, because he then talked about his old computer that he uses, which he's now got Linux on. And I said, I use a first generation iPad mini for reading from. And he was so excited because of the fact that it's as old as it is, but it's still in use. And I said, well, the thing is, it's still got Safari on it, which is the browser, and it's still got iBooks, which is built into its operating system. Both of those are built into the iPad operating system. And so therefore they still function. They won't take updates. I can't put new apps on it or anything else like that, but it will go online, and I can run Safari to go to Project Gutenberg and find the next book and download the EPUB, and then I open it in iBooks and it works. And I said also on top of that, the funny thing is, as long as the Wi-Fi is off for both of them, the iPad battery lasts longer than the modern Samsung tablet that I've got. He thought that was hilarious. Anyway, so I am reading from my iPad mini, and we shall carry on with the next chapter and few of the Rover Boys Out West, or The Search for a Lost Mine. That's its subtitle. That's what I should have put up there, was the subtitle. I knew there was another line I could have put up there, and I couldn't remember what it was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So this is chapter 21, and we're actually reading a chapter called Off for the Mining District. So they did figure out last time that the person who was being ever so helpful really wasn't. He was one of the bad guys who was trying to put them crook, and the guy that they are actually meant to be meeting up with to get help with, they have, and he's been very helpful, and he's a good guy. So we'll carry on here. And we're over halfway now, and yes, we are on our way west to go to this mining area. While Jack Wumble, that's the good guy, was off attending to his private business, whatever that was, he's probably sorting out something to do with his own mines and his own money and everything else, the three Rover boys took a stroll through Denver. The city was different from any they had visited, and their walk was full of interest. Now, I'm not American. I have been to Los Angeles, I've been to Anaheim, and I've been to Seattle. Okay? Hard West Coast. Like, seriously, you can't get much further west than those. So Denver, I know of it, thanks to a singer who had that in his surname and other things like that. But I didn't learn any American history or anything like that. So those of you who come from America know where this is. I can find it on a map, but I'm not going to. You can go and look that up for yourselves, okay? So they have been moving from the east coast over to the west to get to where the mining place is, but they've got as far as Denver. I think they were in Chicago. And I'm pretty sure that the Hardy Boys book we had that was about finding a lost mine, also you went through Chicago. So I'm guessing Chicago is one of those central hub type locations where a lot of railways come in from going in particular various directions, and that's where you get off that train instead of carrying on heading north-south or whatever, even though you can't go north-south. You can go south from Chicago, you can't go much further north. And then if you want to go further west, I think you get off at Chicago and get onto a train that very specifically heads west. And there would have been a lot of other transit forms that would have done something similar because it was a big centre. But they've gone from there and they're now out in Denver. So we're going to find out a bit about it. While Jack Wumble was off attending to his private business, the three Rover boys took a stroll through Denver. The city was different from any they had visited, and their walk was full of interest. Coming to a store, in the window of which were exhibited a number of Indian curiosities, the boys halted to examine the objects, when Tom uttered a sudden cry. Oh, and if I pause suddenly mid-sentence, it's usually because these sentences, their layout is rather fragmented. Someone's actually put a line break halfway along a sentence instead of letting the thing just automatically word wrap. I don't know why, they just have. Look, Dick, there is Bradner inside. So Bradner was one of the bad guys? Oh, yes. Yes, and Dan Baxter is with him, returned the elder brother quickly. Here's luck, surely. Will you have them locked up? Asked Sam. The only problem with that demand is, what are the charges, and what makes you think that you can just make an accusation against somebody and they get locked up? Will you have them locked up? Asked Sam. To be sure, if we can. The boys looked around for a policeman, but none happened to be in sight. Run and see if you can find one, said Dick to Sam. Tom and I can watch the pair. At once, Sam made off, but the policemen were not numerous, and it took quite some time to locate one and explain what was wanted. In the meantime, Dan Baxter had caught sight of Tom and told Bradner of his discovery. Oh dear. Boy and man came out of the store in a great hurry. They were about to run off when Dick caught Bradner by the arm while his brother halted the former bully of Putnam Hall. Let go of me, hissed Bradner, and as Dick paid no attention, he aimed a blow for the youth's head, but Dick had been there before and dodged, and the force of his effort nearly took the rascal off his feet. The guy's throwing his punch nearly knocked himself over. Before he could recover, Dick had him down on his back and was sitting on his chest. Tom was having a lively time with Dan Baxter. The bully hit the boy in the shoulder, and Tom retaliated with a sharp crack that landed straight on Baxter's nose and drew blood. A fight! A fight! Yelled a passing newsboy, and as if by magic, a crowd began to collect. Again Baxter struck out, but his blow fell short, and now Tom gave him one in the ear that spun him half around. By this time the bully felt that he had had enough of the encounter, and breaking through the crowd, he set off on a mad run down the street and around the nearest corner. Feeling it would be useless to try and catch Dan Baxter just then, Tom turned his attention to Dick and Henry Bradner. Bradner was struggling hard to get up, but Dick was master of the situation, so Tom had little to do. I would have got on with climbed on top with the brother, because two boys on top of one man is more likely to hold the guy down than one. What's the meaning of this? Demanded the policeman as soon as he came upon the scene. I want this man arrested, answered Dick as he got up, but still kept close to Bradner. What's he done? He's a sharper of the worst kind. You sure of this? I am. You will have to go to the station house with us if I take the man in, continued the policeman. I am willing, answered Dick quietly. Muttering angrily to himself, Henry Bradner arose. He wanted to run away, but he got no chance to do so. Soon the station house was reached, and here Dick and his brothers told their story. The assault happened in another state, said the officer at the desk. The most we can do is to hold him until the Illinois authorities send for him. Why, that's Harry the Crook from Gunnison, put in an officer who had just come in. He's wanted here on 6 charges. Yay. More than just allegations now. At these words, Bradner turned deathly pale. This is a mistake, he faltered. I know nothing of the man you mention. Too thin, Harry, I know you well, replied the officer. Captain, this is a bad one, he continued to his superior. An investigation into the records was made, and a picture of in the rogues gallery proved that Bradner and Harry the Crook were one and the same beyond a doubt. In that case, we'll hold 'em right here, said the police captain. They don't have to wait for someone from Illinois to come and take him away to Illinois to put charges against him. Oh yeah, I was meant to do my brand cover. Since we're not sponsored, although if anyone has an in with the people at Monster, they can talk to them for me about getting some sponsorship. I won't say no, as long as it's just providing it for me so that I can have a drink. I will not be talking about them lavishly otherwise. There you go. Actually, let's put that band back on it to hold it together. Tisk, tisk indeed. There we go. Not sponsored. And I get it so it lines up better for you guys. Right. In that case, we'll hold him right here, said the police captain. The matter was talked over with Dick, and the youth decided to let his own charge against the crook drop, as he did not wish to waste time in Denver on the case, because he would have to stay there. An hour later, the three rovers departed, leaving Henry Bradner to a fate he richly deserved, until he manages to get out, remember? That's one of our enemies disposed of, observed Dick as they walked back to the hotel. I wish we could do up the Baxters just as easily. The following day found them on the way to Gunnison. Nothing more had been seen or heard of Dan Baxter, nor had anything turned up concerning Arnold Baxter and Roebuck, the man who was with him and who had helped him to escape from prison. Sorry, the word hid is actually what's written there incorrectly. So Gunnison was the town that they're going to, or mining town, I guess, whatever. The country was now mountainous in the extreme, with here and there a wild, weird canyon, thousands of feet deep. It's an odd combination of words, a wild, weird canyon. With their lack of editing skills, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not meant to be weird, but something else. Some of the awful pitfalls made Sam fairly hold his breath. Gosh, he murmured, this beats Africa, doesn't it? Whoever saw such lofty peaks before and such rivers cut out as solid rock? Well, they do have that in Africa too, just maybe not the part that you were in, boys. Don't need to try and boast about the country that you're in, just because it's your home country. We all do that, actually. The boys found Gunnison a small mining city containing perhaps 6,000 souls. What is the definition in the States of a city? In New Zealand, it's over a certain population number. And I don't know if the density of that population has anything to do with it or if it's just the number. In England, it has to have a cathedral. If it's really small and it's got a cathedral, yes, it can still be a city, even if it's only small town size, not even normal town size. But if they actually have a cathedral, then it's a city. So what's the definition of city where you live? Because I wouldn't have called a mining town a city. The boys found Gunnison a small mining city containing perhaps 6,000 souls. A few of the buildings were quite up to date, but the majority were little better than shanties. But Gunnison was a centre for the trade of many miles around, and business was brisk. Even if it's only a cathedral, yeah. It's amazing what can do it. Back then, could be the rail. Yeah, it could be because of the rail. That's a good point. At Gunnison, the entire party procured horses from a dealer Jack Wumble knew, beasts that were strong and used to mountain travelling. We might go on for 20 miles or so by rail, but this is the best place for fitting out, said the old miner. We can strike a pretty fair trail from here, leading directly to Larkspur Creek. And how far is that mining district from here? Asked Tom. As the birds fly, about 65 miles, but the trail makes it a good 100 miles, and some pretty stuff climbing at that. I'm glad you are used to roughing it, for this travelling don't go well with a tenderfoot. The day was clear and the air bracing, and the boys started off with their friend in the best of spirits. Don't forget we're at a much higher elevation than what they're probably used to living at, too. And so therefore the air will be even cooler. Where do we get to? They started off in the best of spirits. Soon the city was left behind, and then began a journey along the foothills, which seemed to have no end.
"If Arnold Baxter is watching us, he's taking precious good care to keep out of sight," said Tom as they rode along in single file, with Jack Wumble in the lead. "No doubt Dan has joined his father and told him of Bradner's fate," returned Dick. "But we have got to keep our eyes wide open. We all know what a wretch Arnold Baxter is, and out in this wild country almost anything is liable to happen." On and on they went, first over a stubble of thin grass, and then through a forest of tall pine trees. Rocks were everywhere, and the trail wound in and out, with an occasional watercourse to be forded. "These watercourses are all right now," observed Jack Wumble, "but in the early spring, when the snow on the mountains begins to melt, they become raging torrents, and getting across 'em is out of the question." "How far are yonder peaks from here?" asked Sam, pointing ahead. "About 25 mile." "Gracious, as far as that? I didn't know one could see so clearly for such a long distance. They look to me only about 3 miles. "The air is very pure and clear out here, lad. No better air in this wide world than that of Colorado." As soon as they came to a halt in a little hollow, protected alike from the breeze and the direct rays of the overhead sun. At noon they came to. Their saddlebags were filled with provisions, and Tom and Sam began to prepare their first meal in the open, with Dick and the old miner assisting. After the meal, Jack Wumble took a smoke and a 10 minutes nap, and during that time the 3 boys strolled off in various directions, Sam going ahead on the trail. Presently, the youngest Rover had his eye arrested by a post set up in the middle of the trail. To the top of the post was tacked a sheet of white paper. "This is odd," thought Sam, and drew closer to inspect the sheet. On it were written the words in pencil: "To the Rovers and their friend. If you want to keep out of trouble, you will return to Gunnison at once. If you dare to push on to Larkspur Creek, it may cost you your lives. We are watching you and are fully armed, and you had better be warned in time. The rightful owners of this," signed, "the rightful owners of the mine." Okay, so they're going to fight for it. Chapter 21. Lost in the Mountains. Oh dear. "Dick, Tom, Jack, come here and see what I've found." Sam's cry was a loud one, and soon the others came up on a run. Jack Wumble, pistol in hand, for his life in the open had taught him to be forever prepared for danger. "What is it, lad?" asked the old miner anxiously. "It's a quit notice for us," answered Sam soberly. "I tell you, the Baxters mean to carry matters with a high hand." All of the others read the notice in silence. Then Dick thrust his hands into his pockets coolly. "I'll see them hanged before I'll go back," he said. "I'm with you," added Tom, "but we must be cautious after this, or the Baxters will be firing at us from an ambush." "Only we could catch sight of them," put in Sam. "They ought to be shot on sight." Who deemed you judge, jury, and executioner?" The boys looked at Jack Wumble, who'd remained silent. "Do you advise us to go back?" asked Dick. "I can't say as I do, lads," was the slow response. "Yet it might be better to do that nor to be shot down and have your body thrown into a canyon," added Wumble, speaking in his old-time vernacular. "Perhaps your father would rather have you back." These people were really ready to give out frontier justice. They are indeed. Oh, my goodness. "I don't believe it," burst out Tom. "Father never wanted cowards for sons." "Yeah, but you don't go into somewhere knowing that you're going to get shot at." "I say I'm going ahead." No, missed a line. "Father never wanted cowards for sons." Dick caught the paper, tore it down and ripped it in two, throwing it to the wind. "I say I'm going ahead." The fact is, he could have left it there. And then the others, the Baxters, might not have noticed that they've already come past, because we don't know how long ago the note was put there. So am I, came from both his brothers. But you need not go, Jack. You need not go, Jack. Except that they don't know how to find the thing. We don't wish you to run into danger and, hold up, Dick, I said I would see you through, and I will, cried the old miner. But I want ye to realise what you are doing, that's all. Yeah, they are very good at getting lost, indeed. If you are shot down, it will be your own fault, so to speak. But we don't intend to be shot down. Who does? Who goes somewhere intending to be shot down? No, they don't. Use your logic, boys. We've run up against the Baxters yeah, before, so we know how to be careful. It ain't like as if they were in a city in the east, went on the old miner. Here some men are mighty free with their shooting irons, and they could take a shot at ye from a long distance with a good rifle. Don't think he needs to be... Okay, whatever. Thus talking, the entire party walked back to their camp and sat down to discuss the situation in detail. By the way, if the others are spying on them, we don't need to give them ideas about how to dispose of these guys. Perhaps we'd better not advance until dark, said Dick. If we advance now, we will simply be making targets of ourselves. And he shivered in spite of himself. Out of you taking notes, indeed. It's after dark. How are we going to see where we're going? We're going to need to provide torches or lamps or something, which will make us a target because it's easy to see those in the dark. Okay, I'll get my brick wall ready. Brick wall is ready. I'll just keep it over here for now, in case we need it. I have a feeling we will. We won't advance at all, put in Jack Wumble briefly. We would be wuss nor fools if we did. Wuss? No idea. We would be fools if we did. I'm just going to ignore that other word. Yeah, that's what it's got written here. But I don't know if that's a typo or... Will we need the wall before the end of the hour? Godiki's asking 8-Ball. The 8-Ball says, without a doubt. It's got a popcorn bucket. How apt. Sitting back with the popcorn, feet up, watching the show. We won't be wuss nor fools if we did with them human wildcats a watching of us. And he began to puff vigorously at his short stump of a briar root pipe. But you said, began Tom when the old miner waved him to silence, a person regarded as weak, ineffectual, or overly fearful. Oh, okay. So what we would call a wuss. Yeah, as Colster's got there. Wuss. W-O-O-S. That's what I kind of thought it was, but I couldn't quite get the usage because I was forgetting the very specific meaning of it. Wow, it's always been wuss then. Yeah, it's not a modern word, apparently. But you said, began Tom when the old miner waved him to silence. Let me think it out, lads, and then I'll tell you my plan. We'll trick him. That's best. And he began to smoke again. Sorry, I need to... it's one of those ADHD itchy everything days, among other things. I'm just going to try and find a way to balance that there, if I can. Is it going to balance? We'll see. Nope, it's not going to. We'll trick him, that's the best, and he began to smoke again. Satisfied that Jack Wumble knew the ground to be covered better than they did, the boys decided to let him have his own way so long as the object of the expedition should be advanced. They sat down in the shade to rest, and thus several hours passed, and the old miner smoked up 6 pipefuls of his favourite plug mixture. So plug is the type of tobacco that you put into a pipe. I've got it, he cried at last. If we can work the deal, we'll keep him guessing. And he laughed softly to himself. His plan was a simple one. Several miles back on the trail, there was a fork, the second trail running to the northward. His plan was to ride back to the fork and then in the darkness of the night to take to the second trail. That don't lead to Larkspur Creek, he said, but it leads to Go Lightly Gulch, and from there I know an old Indian trail which leads to the Larkspur by way of Bender Mountain. It's a dangerous trail to ride, but it's safe too, so far as our enemies are concerned, for they can't cover it from any other part of the mountains. They would either have to be right in front of us or right behind us, and in that case, we'd have as much of a show at them as they would at us. That's a good plan, exclaimed Dick. Let's adopt it, by all means. Slowly the afternoon wore away, until the sun was lost to view behind the great Rocky Mountains in the west. As soon as the shadows became long and deep, Jack Wumble arose. So I wonder what's going on, if the others actually are watching them. It's a good thing to think about. You know, are they being watched? Is somebody else going to figure out what they're doing? Hi, Void. Great to have you here. As soon as the shadows became long and deep, Jack Wumble arose. Now I reckon we can begin to ride on the back trail, he said with a shrewd smile on his rugged face. The rest had made the animals as fresh as ever, and this was a good thing, as the old miner calculated to ride a long distance between sunset and sunrise. I suppose our enemies are watching every move we make, said Tom, but I must say I can't catch a single glance of them. I thought I saw a speck or two of something over the hill to the south, said Dick. Jack Wumble nodded. You are right, Dick. I saw the specks too, and they were men looking in this direction, but they might not have been our enemies. If only we had a good field glass, a pair of binoculars, like the ones I've shown you before, sighed Sam. I was going to bring one along, but I forgot all about it. I think he's thinking telescope. They've got floaties in their eyes. Yeah. They rode on slowly, the old miner not wishing to reach the fork in the trail until it was quite dark. Fortunately, it was clouding up, so that not even the stars would be left to betray them, though I don't know how they're going to actually see their way if this is the case. Yes, spyglass, that's the one. Where when it's field glasses, it's binoculars. They're being tracked by Sting and the Proclaimers. Every move you make, I'll be watching you, because I would walk 500 miles. That's a really good way to put it, actually, Goriki. I'm going to go and grab my field glasses. Just a moment. I used to actually have an old field glass, an old telescope, one that was about that round and about that long that you could pull out. I wish I still had it. I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's at my dad's place or if PJ's got it in his room. But these are my binoculars, my old ones from my grandmother, I think. But I think these used to be her brother's, and her brother was the one who was the geologist and also was a naturalist, used to do bird watching and stuff like that. So this is what gets called field glasses in a lot of older books, whereas a field glass being the telescope instead. Yeah, telescopic telescope, that's right. So yeah, I've got a few old things like that around the house. Just because, yeah, I grew up around old people, so we've still got a lot of that sort of thing around. Anyway, carry on. Where do I get to? Fortunately, it was clouding up so that not even the stars were left to betray them. "We're coming to the fork," said Wumble about 8 o'clock. "Keep your eyes peeled, lads." I'm glad you discovered that. I'm glad that you discovered that, Boyd. "We're coming to the fork," said Wumble. About 8 o'clock. "Keep your eyes peeled, lads, and if you see anything out of the ordinary, let me know at once." There was a tiny stream to cross, and then... Trying to turn pages. And then the way led around a series of sharp rocks. "Keep to the grass as much as possible," cautioned the old miner in a voice that was a mere whisper. "And now follow me as fast as you can." It feels a bit rude, though. Yeah, no worries. I put it in there to make fun of the fact that everyone thinks I'm so old. Away he bounded in the lead, and the 3 Rover boys followed around the rocks through a stretch of pines and out over some fallen firs, and then up and up a rugged trail where the footing was so insecure that the horses slipped continually. The branches of the drooping trees bothered them greatly, and had it not been for Wumble's continual warnings, one or another of them would have been seriously hurt. The horses panted for breath, but still the old miner kept the pace up until the top of the first range of foothills were gained. Here he called a halt under an overhanging rock beneath which it was as black as a dungeon. "Oh, yes, good, thank you. Horse, twice." "Very good." "Time to hydrate, because we've finally got to stuff that we're meant to be doing." "Horse, once, twice." Your turn as well. I don't think I washed it out properly last time. I think it's slightly detergenty. Let's just clean the top of the bottle. Not enough to be a problem, but yeah, that's better. The cat's looking at me funny. Right. Here he called a halt under an overhanging rock beneath which it was as black as a dungeon. "So far, so good," he muttered. "Special challenge for next time. Just track the words in the chapter, and at the end of the chapter, chug." Well, we're going to have a word counter then. "So far, so good," he muttered, as he leapt to the ground and began to pat his heaving and perspiring animal. "I don't believe they know much about where we went to, even if they followed us back to the fork." They remained under the rock the best part of an hour, allowing their trusty animals to get back their wind and strength. During this time, Wumble walked back a short distance, and Tom climbed up to the top of the rock, but neither of them made any discovery of importance. It was a little after midnight when they moved forward again. Their pace was now a little better than a walk, for the trail was a dangerous one, and in many spots they had to leap down and lead their horses. Once they came to a gully 6 to 8 feet wide without a bridge, and it took a good deal of urging to get Tom's horse to make the leap across. "Ooh, if a fellow should tumble in there, where would he go?" he asked Sam with a shudder. "He'd go out of sight forever," replied Wumble solemnly. "Some of those cuts are 1,000 feet deep." "What a mighty upheaval of nature there must have been here at one time," said Dick. By 3 o'clock in the morning, Tom was completely tired out and could scarcely keep his eyes open. Gradually he dragged behind the others, his eyes closing every few minutes, in spite of his efforts to keep them open. "Oh dear. I wish I had a cup of strong coffee to keep me awake," he murmured. "How much further are you going, Jack?" "Couple of miles or so," answered the old miner. "You want a smoke? You can have my pipe." "Thank you, but I don't smoke, and I guess it would only make me feel worse," answered Tom. He began to drop further and further behind. The other boys spoke to him, but they were in reality nearly as much worn out as their brother, and they had all they could do to keep Wumble in sight. They should be strung together at this point. At last Tom's head fell forward on his chest, and on the instant he went fast asleep. His horse continued to move forward, but coming to a fork in the trail, took the downward path, that being the easier to travel. On and on went the beast, until striking a smooth road, he set off on a gallop. The violent motion aroused Tom, and he stared about him in bewilderment. "Dick! Sam!" he called out. "Where are you?" No answer came back, and he sat bolt upright in alarm. So he's wide awake now. Nobody was in sight, nor could he hear a sound saving the hoofbeats of his own horse. He drew rein instantly. I was just thinking, you shouldn't keep going because you're going further away from where you came from. "Dick!" he called loudly. "Jack Wumble, where are you?" Not a sound came in reply, not even the cry of a bird. All was absolutely silent. Tom gave something of a gasp. He realised his position only too well. "Mr. Frodo!" He was lost in the mountains. And that's the end of that chapter. Time to have a mouthful of food and something to drink, I think. We did miss horse. His horse continued to move forward. Have to look out for Shelob and Gollum in the mountains. Yeah, definitely. I think that was the only one we missed out. Oh no, a sound saving the hoofbeats of his own horse. He drew rein instantly. So we have to have one more. I'm actually going to change that water. It's got more flavour than I'm expecting. I'll be back in a minute. Yeah. Right, that's better. I tasted it, and I put fresh water in, shook it, emptied it out several times. No bubbles anymore. Not that there were not many, but just enough for it to still have a little bit of flavour before. Bit off-putting when you're having to drink lots of it. Anyway, he was lost in the mountains. That was the end of the last chapter. Just catch my breath because I had to run up the stairs again. Yes, I'm keeping my brick wall handy. Chapter 23. Tom meets the enemy. Oh dear. Oh, what a fool I was to fall asleep. Thus spoke poor Tom to himself as he continued to gaze around him and call out. To one side was the high mountain, To the other, a deep valley filled with giant trees, and on both sides, an utter loneliness which seemed to penetrate his very soul. Like a flash, there came over him the various stories he had heard of men being lost in these mountains and wandering around for days and weeks until their very reason forsook them. Was he, too, doomed to such a horrible fate? I'm trying really hard not to think of the article I read about people who got a particular bunch of tourists who got lost in Death Valley and up one of the side canyons or something like that. Trying really hard not to. Fervently he prayed to heaven that such an ending would not overtake him. Then with care he turned his horse about. Horse. I shouldn't have put the lid back on, should I? Turned his horse about. As long as he's going in exactly the opposite direction to what he was heading. Thinking to gain the point where he had become separated from the rest, and feeling that they must sooner or later turn back to look for him. Well, if you earn a Darwin Award, you've deserved it. You've actually earned it. Once he imagined that he heard somebody calling him, but the sound was so far away he was not sure, and the echo was such that he could not determine from which direction the call emanated. Yet he yelled in return, nearly splitting his throat in his endeavour to make himself heard. For the time being, the enemy was completely forgotten. Tom's turning back, as he thought he was doing, only made matters worse. For the horse branched off on another trail, but so slender that it soon gave out altogether and left him on the trackless mountainside, and several miles from the fork where his steed had made the first mistake. Yet he pressed on, calling again and again. If you get lost, stop, and do not go further. Stop where you are and mark it where you are and where you just came from. Do not go further. Oh my goodness. He pressed on, calling again and again, but receiving no answer. Twice he imagined he heard pistol shots, and this gave him the idea of firing his own weapon. Drop and roll. Stop, drop and roll. Then pull out your pocket sextant, which is only any good if you know exactly where you started from and which direction you were travelling in. It's like people say, oh, I've got a compass. Yeah, but do you know where you came from and what direction that was? A compass points to north. It doesn't point to the place you're trying to get to. Anyway, we'll carry on. And the problem with firing off shots is people in themselves, hopefully, will keep firing instead of conserving shots. Unless you're Captain Jack Sparrow, yeah. Then his compass points to what he really, truly desires, which is not necessarily the same thing. He changes his mind all the time, doesn't he? This gave him the idea of firing his own weapon, and he emptied the cylinder, but with no good to himself. Then he reloaded and came to a dead stop. He had never been more lonely in his life. The balance of the night dragged so slowly that Tom thought it would never come morning again. With the first streak of light in the east, he arose from the rock upon which he had thrown himself, and running to a higher point, gazed eagerly around him. He felt as Robinson Crusoe must have done on his deserted island. I'm trying to remember if I actually read Robinson Crusoe or not. I know I had originally intended to, but I don't remember if I actually read it or not. On all sides were rocks and hills, mountains and valleys, some bare and others covered with growths of pines and firs. Here and there glistened a rushing stream or a lofty waterfall, and on one of the hills he saw a herd of mule deer, and on another a solitary rocky mountain goat, but nowhere was the first sign of a human being. Well, thank goodness we didn't see a bear. Tom stood there for fully 10 minutes, his breast heaving and his heart sinking within him like a lump of lead. He was alone, absolutely alone in that wild and almost trackless region. Speaking of tracks, have we thought of actually backtracking by looking at the marks that our horse's feet have made? What was to be done? Over and over he asked himself the question, and the answer always remained a blank. He knew not which way to turn, for going on might bring him into worse difficulty. Finally! Some sense. And yet he could not think of remaining still where he was, for the very thought was maddening. He must try to do something, be the consequence what it might. Then he realised his mouth was dry, and that he was hungry. This made him remember that all the provisions were loaded on the horses ridden by Jack Wumble and Dick. His own steed bore only some mining tools. I wish I could swap the tools for something to eat, he mused, but there's no use in crying over spilt milk. I'm in a pickle, and I must do my best to get myself out of it. Well, it will be sour spilt milk if there's a pickle as well. At a short distance he saw a small hollow which had become partly filled by rain of several days before. He walked to the hollow and drank his fill, and then led his horse thither. Thither indeed, horse. We're lost, old man, he said, patting the beast on the neck. We must find the others. You'll help, won't you? And the horse pricked up his ears and looked about wisely as if he understood. At that moment Tom felt that a horse is indeed a man's best friend. He soon set off, but slowly, trying to locate the trail which had brought him astray, and trying at the same time, by the rising sun, to determine the direction in which his brothers and Jack Wumble had passed. But as before, his efforts were misleading, and by the middle of the forenoon he found himself on a barren hilltop with no chance of leaving it, excepting by the way he had come. Okay? It was truly disheartening. And hot, tired, and discouraged, he leapt again to the ground. He was now very hungry, without a morsel to satisfy. Excuse me. His steed, too, wanted for something to eat, and gnawed eagerly at the spare vegetation as soon as permitted. Tom was wondering what should be his next move when he was startled by the appearance of a mule deer on the hillside just below him. As he gazed at the animal, he soon saw another, and then another, until the hillside seemed to be covered with them. I suppose men never come here and I suppose men never come here to disturb them, he thought bitterly. I wonder if I could bring one down with my pistol. I've got matches, and cooked deer's meat would be first class. Have you got an axe for cutting up the wood to create the fire? Because you will not cook enough with a match. He crept as close as he could to the deer. Fortunately, the breeze was blowing up the hill toward him, so the animals could not scent him readily. When he'd gotten as near as he thought possible, he took careful aim, and blazed away twice in quick succession. Excuse me. That's better. His first shot was a failure, but his second landed in the deer's front leg, breaking that member at the knee, and pitching the deer headlong. At once the rest of the herd took alarm and went off like the wind down the hillside into the valley and up another hill a good mile away. At the same time the wounded beast tried to rise, but before it could do so Tom ran closer and put 3 more shots into it, and then it rolled over, gave a jerk or two, and remained quiet forever. The other people should hear that. Yes, they should do. The sight of such a feast made Tom's heart much lighter, and he brought out his pocket knife and cut out some of the steaks. Let's just gloss over how complicated and hard it is to do all that. And I think I won't gross you out. Just suffice it to say that getting meat from an animal that one has just successfully slain is not quite as easy or as clean and straightforward as what we have just had portrayed for us. And cut out some of the steaks. Then he moved down the hillside to where some brush promised abundant firewood and better forage for his horse. No, the deer went shopping and dropped its bags at it. It had just bought steak. That's all people need to know. Oh my goodness. Oh, dear. The fire... Oh, forage for the horse. Sorry. Horse. The fire was soon lit and blazing away merrily, and the boy began to broil his steaks, which means, for those of us who are not North American, or at least not American, it means grill them. Barbecuing them over the fire. Perhaps Dick and the others will see the smoke, he thought. I trust they do, for I don't want to put it in a whole night alone. The reality is, if he's cooking the meat over it, it shouldn't be very smoky by this stage. Tom ate his meal slowly, for he did not know what to do after it was finished. He wished he knew how far the nearest settlement was and in what direction. After he'd eaten his fill, he tied the balance of the steaks in a corner of his blanket, for the food must be kept for future use. I do hope there's not a bear around. Then he walked up to the top of the hill for another look around. Suddenly, he caught sight of a man riding swiftly toward him, a heavy-set man with busky whiskers. Busky whiskers! What is busky whiskers? I'm guessing the bear is still out shopping. Yeah. I'm guessing that it's meant to be bushy whiskers, that it's B-U-S-H-Y, not B-U-S-K-Y. I'm guessing it's another one of their typos that they didn't correct. But it might be a real word. I don't know. I've never heard of it before. Busky whiskers. And a face that was almost black from constant exposure to the elements. Well, actually, no, it just goes very dark brown. It does not go black. I'm sorry. No. I think this is written by someone who sits behind a desk too much. Hello, youngster, cried the man when he was within hailing distance. All alone here? I am, cried Tom, and he felt something of joy to see a human being again. Oh, the naivete. What brought you away out here? Hunting? Not exactly, although I did bring down yonder animal, with a jerk of his thumb toward the deer. I've lost my way. Did you really? That's bad. It's lucky I ran across you. What's your handle? Tom Rover, answered the youth boldly. What's yours? Noxton. So you're all alone? Noxton. Have we heard of Noxton? Pro tip, never say you're alone. Mum's out shopping. Yes. With the bear. Mum and the bear are out shopping for more steaks. Because the deer dropped them. Yes, said Noxton. So are you all alone? Yes, said Tom, trying to think where he'd heard that name, but he could not remember. He's one of the bad guys. Oh, dear. Well, hardly. Now, hang on a minute. Where do we get? So you're all alone? Yes. Tom was trying to think where he'd heard that name, but he could not remember. Are you alone? Well, hardly. Bill Noxton hesitated for a moment. I was alone, but day before yesterday I fell in with a couple of Englishmen who are out here to see the sights, and they hired me to show 'em round. Our camp's just below here. Will you come down and be introduced to the beef-eaters? Not what I would think there'd be a common nickname for English people. The beef-eaters were a particular sector of the Royal Guard at the Tower. I suppose I might as well, answered Tom, never suspecting any trick. I certainly don't want to remain alone any longer. Then come on, I told the beef-eaters I'd be back inside a half an hour. Rather than the vegans, yeah, and the deer-eaters. Then the man waited for Tom to mount and then led the way down the hillside and into the valley. What about, why is the guy going up there? Why is Tom not asking where he was heading for when he suddenly changed his mind and talked to Tom and then went down the hill again? Dad's on his way back from the police station shooting range. Yeah, exactly. Dad's on his way back from the police station shooting range with his wrestler buddies and the boxers. The guys who do boxing, bare knuckle. The man waited for Tom to mount and then led the way down the hillside and into the valley. There was a patch of forest to pass, and they came out in a clearing on another hill, overlooking a mountain stream which flowed 100 feet below. Here we are, cried Bill Noxon as he suddenly wheeled about. wheeled behind Tom. "Shall I introduce you, Mr. Rover?" Tom looked ahead and his heart dropped. There, around a campfire, sat Arnold Baxter and his son Dan, and a man who was a stranger to him. Clearly he was trapped and in the hands of the enemy. Oh dear. We knew it was going to happen, didn't we? Chapter 14, The Search for the Missing Boy. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. "Tom isn't here." It was Dick who uttered the words. As of a sudden, he wheeled around on the dark trail and tried to penetrate the blackness of night behind them. He's trying to see in the dark. Just say that, mate. Note to all future Stratemeyer Syndicate authors: throw away your thesaurus and your word list. Right. "Isn't here?" demanded Jack Wumble, while Sam set up a cry of dismay. "No! Tom! Tom!" Sam joined in the cry, and so did the old miner. Miner. I've got to find the right bottle now. It's the one with the purple top. Miner. "And today we shall have water of the flavour that is labelled Miner." That's weird. "From the bottle labelled Miner." There you go, that's better. But as we already know, it was useless, and this is in the dark that they're realising it's happening. "This is the worst yet," growled Jack Wumble. "I told ye all to keep close to me. It's mineral water. Very good. Very clever." "Perhaps he fell asleep. I know he was dead tired," answered Dick, hitting the plain truth. "We'll have to go back for him," said Sam, and turned without delay, for going ahead without Tom was out of the question. "Yes, we'll go back," rejoined the old miner. "But go slow, or you may make matters worse. I can follow a clear trail even of three horses, but I can't follow a trail mixed up backward and forward." This would have been a good chug chapter, yeah. Well, we don't have it sorted out, do we? We don't have a word counter. They rode back slowly until at least half a mile had been covered. Then they shouted, but only a dismal echo came back. Three horses, yeah. Sorry, I was trying to figure out what the word was for. It is a digital copy. The book, if you look on Project Gutenberg, which if you put !PG, that'll give you the link for Project Gutenberg. Could do. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. I'm reading it on an iPad. I don't know how to do that on an iPad. And it won't do it by the chapter. More about paying attention, yeah. Yeah, true. If we had something like a death counter, but a word counter, and we had a way of actually putting the numbers up, I mean, I probably could do it, but it's going to take a little bit of figuring it out, where people would enter in a command and it would increase the number for that particular word. That would work. That would be a good way to do it, but I haven't got that far yet. We'll carry on. I'm not good at that figuring it out beforehand type stuff. We usually have to have the idea and then I ponder it for a while and then get back to how we do it. But it is really cool when it's actually you guys picking up that a word has come through and make a noise about it. But in a way, 2+ people can't use it at the same time isn't feasible. I know. Whatever. I feel like having one of those little clickers that they used to have when they were counting people coming in the door. Can't follow a trail mixed up backward and forward. They wrote, I really don't know how he's expecting to be able to see the trail because it's dark and it's cloudy and there's no starlight to be able to see where they are, let alone footprints. They rode back slowly until at least half a mile had been covered. Then they shouted, but only a dismal echo came back. Dick fancied once that he heard Tom calling, but he was not sure. Daylight found them still searching around, Dick and Sam with more sober faces than they had worn in many a day. They knew only too well the danger of becoming lost in those wild mountains. "Perhaps he's fallen in with Baxter's party," said Dick, as they came to a halt at the edge of a cliff overlooking a rushing river far below. It was past the breakfast hour, yet none of them felt like eating. "Be careful how you expose yourself," observed Jack Wumble as he screened himself and his horse behind some brush. "It won't do no good to Tom to let your enemies see you." Goodie says, "I'm jealous. I never fall into parties." Yeah. Me neither. Some people have all the luck. "If only we hadn't lost the trail," sighed Sam. The back trail had disappeared on some rocks half an hour before, and all efforts to take it up again had proved unsuccessful. "Gotta think horse. Okay, I'm a horse. I'm on here. I've entered this space this way, and I'm just walking along because the person has fallen asleep. They've already determined that's probably what happened. Where would the horse go next? It's going to keep on going downhill." The Rover boys felt very much disheartened. Without Tom, what was the use of going ahead to locate the missing mine? "He's worth a dozen mines," said Dick. "We must find him. We simply must." But they were stumped, to use Sam's way of expressing it, and with nothing better to do, Jack Wumble drew further back into the bushes, tethered his horse, and got out the provisions for a meal. The boys ate mechanically and were soon done. Then Wumble got out his pipe and began to smoke more vigorously than ever. Some people use it as a way to focus the mind. When they're trying to think through something, they'll actually sit and smoke. So the description works well. "If we had a field glass, we might spot him." "Would you like to borrow my field glasses? I can lend them to you." "He can't be such a terrible distance away." Yeah, like Gandalf. That's right, he does. "I was going to fire my pistol again," said Dick, and did so, but no response came back, and he reloaded as crestfallen as ever. It was a clear day, but the very sun seemed a mockery as it beamed down upon them. "Suppose we separate and renew the hunt," suggested Sam, but Wumble slowly shook his head. "Then we get more of them lost." "No, thank you for shaking your head, Wumble. None of that, lad. It'll only be a case of another one lost. No, we must keep within sight of each other, no matter what we do. Come, I have an idea of looking into the valley on the other side of this hill, and then we can try the hill yonder." Anything was better than sitting still, and once more they rode up. "The problem is, if they find him, even if the Baxters are out of sight, when the Baxters come back, they will then follow these guys' trails to the shortcut. No, not the shortcut, the hidden way to get to the mine that they're trying to avoid the Baxters from finding." Anything was better than sitting still, and once more they rode on. For the time being, the enemy was almost forgotten. They were going down along the edge of the cliff when, without warning, Dick's horse began to slip, having stepped on a rock which was insecure. "Oi! Whoa!" yelled the youth, and tried to hold the horse back. Then, as he saw the animal could not save himself, he leapt for the ground. The horse managed to scramble to a place of safety, but Dick, in trying to avoid a dangerous hoof-stroke from the beast, lost his balance and went crashing down into the bushes overhanging the cliff. Yes, horse, well done. And, yeah, no, I think that was it. Times 2, times 3. Wow, 1. 2. I hope you guys are drinking. You're meant to be drinking as well as me. 3. Well done. Down and still down. Crashed into the bushes overhanging the cliff. Okay. Down and still down went the elder Rover from one bush to another, his clothing catching here and there and thus partly staying his progress. Yeah, you grab yours. But he could not stop himself entirely, and reaching the stream at last, he went in with a loud splash and disappeared from view. Gonna actually chug you, that's probably a good idea. "Dick's gone!" shouted Sam. He tried to look over the edge of the cliff. "Oh my, he will be drowned!" He'd heard the splash, as had also Wumble, and now both dismounted with all speed and crept to the very edge of the bushes. But the cliff bulged outward just below them, and they could see nothing but a strip of the water on the opposite side. "Dick! Dick!" sang out the brother. "Are you safe?" No reply came back, and Sam's face turned white as he looked at Jack Wumble. "Do you think he's been killed?" The question nearly choked him. "I can't say, Sam," was the answer. "We must get down and see." With extreme care, the old miner let himself down from one clump of brush to another. Miner! His experience at prospecting stood him in good stead. He's been killed to death, for he had frequently climbed down just such heights to see if the mountain stream below would pan out sufficiently to set up a claim. In the meanwhile, Dick had gone to the very bottom of the stream, struck on the sand and rocks, and had come up again. In falling down, he had turned over and over, and he was as much dazed by this as he was by the quantity of cold water which he swallowed. For the minute after coming up, he did not realize his situation. Then he felt himself borne along swiftly, he knew not to where. The rushing of the water was deafening, for the stream was approaching a narrow canyon. And here the water was lashed into a milky foam as it tumbled and tore over the rocks on its way to a broader spot, 1/4 of a mile below. Presently Dick felt his feet touch the bottom, but only for an instant. The stream was calmer now, and on one side of the cut he saw a narrow strip of land, I think it is, leading up to a shelving of rocks, with here and there a tiny brush struggling for existence in a spot which the sunlight never touched. He began to strive with might and main to reach the strip of sand, and finally succeeded. Then he threw himself down, too exhausted to make another move. "I'm in for it now," he thought, when he somewhat recovered. "How in the world am I ever to get back to that trail again?" He looked above him. The mountain was high here, and there was nothing resembling a path leading upward. To climb from one scant footing to another would prove perilous, if not impossible. Yeah, because back in the day, people didn't free climb at all. So they wouldn't know what to do with this. "We are making a mess of this expedition," he groaned. "First Tom must get lost, or worse. And now I'm down here like a rat in a trap. Perhaps we would have been better off if we'd never started out." When Dick felt able, he walked from one end of the sand strip to the other. This gave him no satisfaction, and he began to inspect the stream again. Below him was a curve, and what was beyond there was no telling. "If I enter the water again, it may carry me along for miles before I have another chance to get out," he reasoned, "and then I will be just that much further away from Sam and Wumble." If he had had his pistol, he would have fired it to let them know that he was safe, and in the hope that they would come for him. But the weapon had been lost in the tumble down the cliff. With much hesitation, he began to climb up the side of the canyon, making sure that one footing was perfectly safe before he tried another. In this manner, he at length reached the height of 100 feet. Wow. He did not dare to look back for fear of tumbling, and yet the path to safety was still a long way off. "If I can't gain the top and can't go back, what then?" he asked himself, and the cold perspiration stood out on his forehead in beads. There was a bush in front of him, and he squeezed into this so that he might sit down to consider the situation. Pushed back, the bush suddenly gave way altogether, and to his astonishment, Dick fell into the opening of a large cave. This is where you know it's a kid's adventure story. That's the end of the chapter. Not the end of the book, thankfully. I wonder if this is a hidden mine. 25-2. 11 pages in it. Yes, good. Oh dear. I've just seen the chapter title. Oh dear, oh dear. Chapter 25, a cave and a bear. I told you there were bears. I'm going to have a drink. I know, you have to wonder how none of them heard the hunting shots. How many ridges was he beyond? The bear is back from shopping. Dun, dun, dun. Exactly. Oh, my goodness. Oh, no. Tune in next week. Right. Chapter 25, a cave and a bear. Hello. Here's something new, thought Dick, because that's a big if lost use flare gun or gun. Before flares, they had a pistol in a boat. Yeah. Here's something new, thought Dick as he gathered himself up. Bush and boy had rolled downward for a distance of 12 feet. So, oh no, please, no die. So the cave doesn't go in like this. The cave goes in like this. It's got to be a natural one because there's no way anyone would climb down a cliff to start a mine, a hole for a mine. Yeah. Bush and boy had rolled downward for a distance of 12 feet. He found himself on a rocky floor that was almost level. The cave was 10 to 20 feet wide and so high that in the gloom he could not see the ceiling. Luckily, the boys had with them the waterproof match safes, which had proved so handy in Africa. I was just wondering if he had such a thing as waterproof matches. And now Dick brought out the one he carried and lit a match. The bush that had given way was dry, and soon he made of it quite a respectable torch. It's not going to last long. Satisfied that the cave had no side branches in which he might become lost, he resolved to push into it, in the hope that another opening might present itself leading to the cliff where the accident had occurred, so hopefully higher up. The cave was dry and dusty, not a particle of water being anywhere visible. As he walked along, he came across some dead leaves, and then some small tree branches. These gave him much encouragement. Sadly, the bear went shopping hungry. Never shop hungry. For how could they have gotten into the place if there was no entrance from the mountainside? Dick had advanced a distance of several hundred yards when he came to a turn to the right, and from this point the bottom of the cave sloped gradually upward. He also made out a glimmer of light, but it was so far off that nothing was to be seen distinctly. Much encouraged, he pushed on faster than ever until a line of rocks barred his further progress. He was about to climb the rocks when a growl from a distance caused him to pause. Parachutes. What was it? With bated breath, Dick listened until the growl was repeated. The walls of the cave took it up, and it was repeated over and over again until lost in the distance. A bear, or something just as bad, thought the youth. Now what's to do? He crouched down on the rocks and sat as still as death for fully 5 minutes. Unfortunately, he doesn't smell like death. He smells like yummy boy. But no further growl reached him, and then he plucked up courage enough to scramble up the rocks, which led to a flooring considerably higher than that over which he had been travelling. Hurrah! It was the light of day ahead. Did he forget the bear? Sorry, I'm glad I've got a limiter on my microphone. Hurrah! It was the light of day ahead, and Dick could scarcely suppress a shout of joy, but the growl still hung in his mind, and though he went forward, it was as silently as a cat, and with eyes strained and first strained first in one direction and then in another. He was glad he still had the torch, for he remembered that the majority of wild beasts are afraid of a light. I think it's more fire that they're afraid of. It had burned rather low, but by swinging it around, he soon started up the blaze. Parachutes and stake. And now he could see the cave entrance distinctly, less than 200 feet off. It was low and wide, and there were several bushes growing around it. He started on a run, and as he did so, the growl sounded out again, this time almost directly beside him. He turned swiftly and beheld two glaring eyeballs bent upon him from the gloom of a hollow on one side of the cave. Whether or not the bear was preparing to leap upon him, he could not say. But he jumped like lightning and then tore on as if the demon of the bottomless pit were after him. This is Tom, not the bear, thankfully. The bear was following. Dick knew this. Sorry, I thought it was... Oh, yeah, that's right. Tom's the one that got lost on the horse. Dick knew this without looking behind. The animal was heavy and clumsy, yet it covered the ground with an agility that was surprising. It was hungry, not having tasted meat for several days, and now thought it saw the prospect of a fine meal ahead. "Back!" yelled Dick, but the animal paid no attention. Choose a different language? The boy was running as never before, yet the bear kept drawing closer until Dick almost felt its hot breath on his neck. No, it's more likely to be on your back than on your neck. He trailed the torch behind him, and the beast fell back several paces. The opening was now gained, and the youth ran out onto the mountainside, which was covered with stubble and rocks. Glancing hastily around, Dick saw one rock that was both small and rather high, and scrambled to the top of this. The bear gained the mouth of the cave and looked out suspiciously. Then, as it discovered the boy on the rock, it let out another growl, more terrifying than any which had gone before. Slowly it trotted toward Dick, then began a circle of the rock as if to determine whether or not the ground was clear for an attack. If a boy could climb up the rock, I'm pretty sure the bear could. The boy still held the torch, but it was burnt nearly to the end and was in danger of going out every minute. Besides, in the sunshine, it did not look half as formidable as it had in the gloomy cave. Suddenly the bear reared itself up on its hind legs and advanced straight for the rock. At this movement, Dick's heart seemed to stop beating, yet he managed to let out one long scream for help. Then, as the bear came still nearer, he thrust the torch end directly into the brute's face. The bear couldn't because of the signage, kids' play area. Of course, the animal fell back and down went the torch on the rocks below, and Dick was now utterly defenceless. The bear appeared to know this and let out a growl of satisfaction, as though it had its next meal already within its grisly grasp. I bet the author was delighted to be able to use that phrase. Bang! It was the report of a gun not over 100 yards away, and the bear dropped to all fours and shook its head wildly. Bang! Came another report, and now the bear screamed with pain and fell over on its side. Dick looked behind him in amazement and beheld a stranger on horseback. The stranger had just emptied his double-barreled rifle, and now he came riding up with his pistol in his hand. The bear tried to rise up to meet him, but was too seriously wounded already, and a shot at close range finished the brute's misery. Oh, my goodness. Oh, and thank you so much for the raid from Juna Iguana. Wana Iguana. I'm not sure. Do you pronounce it as a y or a j? Sorry about that. But thank you for coming. And just sit back and enjoy yourself. We've got another quarter of an hour to go, probably. Right, where do we get to? And at a close range finished the brute's misery. Well, young fella, reckon you was in a pretty tight fix. remarked the stranger after he had made certain that the animal was dead. I was in a tight fix, answered Dick with a shiver. You came in the nick of time, and I owe you a good deal for it. That's all right. I never go back on a bar if I get a chance at 'em. But how in thunder came you in such a fix in the first place? Went on the horseman, who was at least 6'4" in height, and about as thin a man as Dick had ever seen. Horse, by the way. It's a route to horseback or horseman. There you go. It's a long story, sir, was the cautious response. May I ask who it is that has saved me? Well, my right handle, James Carson, was the answer. But them as knows me calls me Slim Jim, and it's good enough for the likes of a shadow like me too, I calculate. And who might you be? I'm sorry about the accent, but that's just the one he's got. For now. It'll change, I'm sure. I am Dick Rover. I was with my 2 brothers with an old miner named Jack Wumble. Miner, we are drinking. This is our drinking game over here, folks. And sorry for whacking the microphone. So those 3 words, house, miner and horse, are the trigger for me to drink some water. And because the agreement in this channel is when I drink water, you drink water, so we all hydrate. Okay? We'll carry on. And an old miner named Jack Wumble, when I slipped off my horse into the river over there and nearly lost my life. But I managed to crawl out, and in climbing up the mountainside found yonder cave and came through to this end. In the cave I found the bear, and he followed me here. And you know the rest. Well, well, you had a narrow escape, youngster, and no disputing the point. If I hadn't come as I did, that 'ere bear would have chawed ye up in no time. Chewed you up. I know it, Mr. Carson. You're kind. Whoopee, Rover, don't go for to mister me, or I'll be sorry I killed the bear for ye. I'm plain Slim Jim to all as knows me, Slim Jim the hunter and trapper. I spent 40 years on these mountains, and like as not I'll spend 40 more, if the good Lord allows me to live that long. And where do you calculate your brothers and Jack Wumble are now? I'm sure I don't know. One of my brothers, Tom, got lost, and I and Sam and Wumble were looking for him when I had the mishap. Do you know Jack Wumble? For certain I do. I knowed him when he were mining up in the old Bumblebee Creek, as he calls it. Mining. So that means we've got miner? Well, we'll go for it anyway. Indeed, cried Dick. Then perhaps you knew my father, Anderson Rover. He used to be in partnership with a man called Kennedy. Knew him? Of course I knew him, lad. And so you are his son, eh? Well, well. Shake, and Slim Jim, as he preferred to be called, thrust forth a hand that was as hard as a piece of cow horn. But he had a soft heart, and Dick soon learned that he was as much to be trusted as was Jack Wumble. I'll do my best to see ye right, lad, said the old hunter, after he had listened to the details of Dick's story. I think I know about the spot where ye took the tumble. Before leaving the vicinity, Slim Jim set to work and cut the pelt off the bear and hung it up, 'cause he's a hunter, you see. He also cut away some of the choicest of the meat. It's a pity to leave any of it behind, he observed. Some poor folks are starving to death in the city, and there's a meal for 100. It was well along in the afternoon when they started, Dick riding behind the old hunter. He felt that he could tell Slim Jim about their mission, and he mentioned how the Baxters were watching them and trying to outwit them. Think this should have been done the other way round first. Try and assess which way round. Like, find out if he knows the Baxters and what his attitude about the Baxters is before going on to what our plans are. These boys. I remember that Baxter too, said the old hunter. Wumble can tell ye how we come nigh to making him do a dance on nothing once. I take your part agin him every time, hear me. And his openness showed that he meant what he said. So he's obviously not keen on Baxter, but Dick should have led with that, not the plan. you know. Okay, so here we go. We are banging the head against the brick wall for Dick going ahead and saying something when he shouldn't have. But it's not quite as bad as it could have been. Anyway, chapter 16. The Baxters try to make terms. For the moment after Tom found himself in the presence of the Baxters, he could not speak. Then he turned fiercely upon Bill Noxton. "You have fooled me!" he cried hotly. "That's right," laughed Noxton sarcastically. "And let me add ye was fooled pretty easy." "It's Tom Rover," stated Dan Baxter as he leapt to his feet, followed by his parent. "Where did you find him, Noxton? Over to that fire?" "Yes." "Were the others of the party with him?" put in Arnold Baxter quickly. "No, he was alone. He got lost from the rest last night when they gave us the slip in the dark." "Then you've seen nothing of the others?" asked Arnold Baxter. I'm not going to try and give him an accent too, because it's just bad enough as it is. And it was plain to see that he was keenly disappointed. "No, but I reckon they can't be far off," replied Noxton. Seeing that Tom contemplated running away, he made the youth hop off the horse, dismount. "Better make a prisoner of him," he suggested. "By all means," cried Dan Baxter, and brought forth a stout lariat. With this, Tom's hands. This has been so badly edited, this one. Tom's hands were bound behind him and his feet were also secured. "That's number one, Roebuck," laughed Arnold Baxter, turning to the man who had thus far remained silent. "Tom Rover?" asked the man laconically. "Yes, a bright-looking chap." "Oh, he's bright enough," growled Baxter Senior. "But it won't help him any," put in Dan, bound to say something. Is he the oldest of the three?" "No, Dick's the oldest. Tom comes next." "Then it's Dick you ought to have collared," said Roebuck, turning to Noxton. "Roebuck must be the other guy." "I collared the one I happened to see." "Well, Tom Rover, how do you like your situation?" asked Dan with a sickly smile as the men turned away to discuss the situation among themselves. "Don't like it," replied Tom, as lightly as he could. "I guess you're sorry now that you didn't heed our warning and go back to Gunnison." "I'm not particularly sorry. I have as much right out here as anybody." "You needn't put on airs to me. I know you're trembling in your boots." Dan's a bully, and according to the way stories written in, that means that he was also a coward. Not all bullies are, by the way. "Thanks, but if you'll bring your chin out of the air, Baxter, you'll see that I'm wearing shoes." "Don't you put on airs with me, Tom Rover. You're in our power, and you shall suffer for the way you've treated my father and me in the past." "I've no doubt, Baxter, now I am helpless, that you will want to do your worst. You were always ready to take unfair advantage of another." This answer made Dan Baxter boil with rage, and he stepped closer and shook his fist in Tom's face. "You be careful or I'll crack you one," he blustered. "You're a cheerful brute, Dan, I must say. Why don't you try to fight fair for once? It would be such a delightful change." "I do fight fair. You and your brothers have no right to poke your noses in my affairs and my father's. This affair out here is our own, not yours. The Eclipse mine is my father's property." "And I say it belongs to me and Dad," answered Dan with more force than elegance. "But I won't argue with you. You are in our power and have got to take the consequence." "What do you intend to do with me?" asked Tom. "You'll find out soon enough. Don't you know that my brothers are in this neighbourhood and that they have the law on their side?" "Yes, I know your brothers are out here, and we'll have them prisoner too before long," returned Dan Baxter, and then cut the conversation short by walking away. Tom had managed to speak bravely enough, yet his heart was by no means light. He realised that the Baxters had not forgotten the past. Of course they haven't. Why would they have forgotten the past? My not sponsored juice drink. My not sponsored juice drink. I'm trying to think if there's any way I can get it where it's going to cover both. Not really. I'll just hold it down here. Carrying on. The Baxters had not forgotten the past, and that here in this wild country they were more inclined than ever to take the law into their own hands. He was left alone for the best part. Oh my goodness, Coleslaw. Coleslaw has redeemed a voice. Coleslaw wants me to read the next few minutes in Irish or Scottish. Oh dear. Should I put a timer on for this? For the voices only, yeah. Oh, that's good. It's easier to do accents for voices than just reading. I won't bother with a timer because I don't know how well I'm going to cope with it anyway. We'll see how we go. But thank you for redeeming that. 5 is the end of the stream, basically. Finish us off. Oh yeah, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Okay, we'll go with whatever it comes out with. It'll probably be Scottish morphing into Irish or Irish morphing into Scottish because I am terrible at accents. So get ready for lots of laughs.
For me, if I try either of them, I end up with Liverpudlian.
Yeah, PJ's saying if he tries either of them, he ends up Liverpudlian. Anyway, we'll carry on. Here in this wild country, they were. Yeah, he knows several people from Liverpool and talks with them quite often. Here in this wild country, they were more inclined than ever to take the law into their own hands. He was left alone for the best part of an hour. Only Noxton seemed to seeing to it that he did not run away. And then he was ordered to mount his horse again, his legs being liberated for that purpose. Horse, sorry. Worst case, Welsh. I'll see what I can do. Oh, dear. The thing is, when I'm not in front of a microphone, I can hear them and do them, but not in front of a microphone. I don't know why. And it's not nervousness or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. Overthinking it, probably. Stop stalling. You're on to me. Oh, dear. Feeling it would be foolhardy to refuse with 3 men and a boy against him, Tom mounted and the whole party moved along the mountain to a spot which was evidently well known to Noxton. Here at a certain point was what had once been an overland hotel, but the building was now dilapidated and deserted. Scottish, Irish. I'm trying to remember anyone I know who speaks with one of those accents.
What's his name from Driving Stone? Scottish.
Dave. I've never talked to Dave enough to know his accent.
What's his name from Hamish McDade?
I've said it for so long. Trying to remember a character I know or an actor I know who speaks with a certain accent. We'll stop here for the present, said Arnold Baxter grimly. Get down, Rover. And Tom obeyed. And that was started and then went off. Inside the place, 2 of the rooms were found in fair condition, and in one of these Tom was tied fast to a cupboard door. Then the men went out for another parley. The youth could not hear all that was said, but learned enough to convince him that Al Roebuck, as he was called, was the party who had forged the pardon which had obtained for Arnold Baxter his liberty. For this work, Roebuck had been promised a half share of the Eclipse mine, and of some money which Baxter the elder was hoping to obtain. At last Arnold Baxter and Dan came in once more and faced Tom. Rover, we're now ready to come to terms, began the man. Are you ready to release me? Yes, under certain circumstances. You've got to sign off on rights to that mine. Oh, that's not Irish or Scottish. Broke in Dan. Dan, keep quiet, interposed his father. I can do this better alone. These are none of them. I can do this better alone. What? Probably. I know him better than you do, Dad, returned his graceless son. Perhaps, but I'm fully capable of making terms with him. All right, fire away. I don't care. I only don't let him off too easy. And this is down the other end of the country. This is terrible. I can't even get the words out now. I'm trying to remember an actor I know who speaks with a strong Scottish accent. Just a moment. I'm anxious to settle this matter quietly, went on Arnold Baxter to Tom. I don't want any more trouble. Well, go ahead, I'm listening, came from Tom. You're out here to locate a certain... I cannot do this. Yeah, but it's neither of them. It's more... I don't deny it. The mine belongs to my father. It belongs to me, and I'm bound to have it. You're a jailbird, Mr. Baxter. How can you hold the property now? The criminal winced and clenched his fists. Don't be quite so plain-spoken, Rover. It doesn't sit well. I say the claim is mine. Well, you are in my power. Granted. This is terrible. I can't do it. I can't. One more page after this one. You're in my power, granted. Oh, my goodness. I can't even think of Welsh now. Oh, my goodness. And Scottish and Irish are actually quite easy to do because they're so distinctively different from Kiwi English. Oh, and I end up with going Somerset and Pirates. Or working factory. Isn't your life worth something to you? To be sure it is. Then why not try to make terms to save it? You are fooling with me. You cannot be in earnest, Arnold Baxter. You'll soon see if Dad ain't in earnest, burst out Dan. I am not fooling, Rover. I mean every word of what I say, and now we're almost drifting into Welsh. If you want to save your life, you must make terms with me. What sort of terms? And now we're getting Yorkshire in there somewhere. You must write a letter to your brothers and the man who was with you and get them to return without delay to the east. Let's just go with this one, okay? And after that, after they have returned to the east, we will set you free, provided you swear to follow them and all of you swear to keep out of Colorado in the future. And if you refuse, your life shall pay the forfeit, answered Arnold Baxter. Come now, which do you choose? Ooh-ar! And there endeth the chapter. Oh, that is the worst set of accents I've ever done. It never once settled on anything. It was accurate. Come now, which do you choose? Oh, my goodness. Oh, dear. Yeah, a bit of absolutely everything. And I cannot do Australian. Doesn't matter how hard I try, except occasionally I'll randomly get a word that will sound Australian. And I don't know how that happens. Need a special stream, accent acting practice. And I probably need a bunch of samples that I can hear that remind me of what it's meant to sound like, instead of trying to figure it out. It's sort of like, listen to it for a minute. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. What's really funny is I've got two friends who actually do voice acting. One of them does a bit of stuff as English voiceovers for Asian. Some of it's games, some of it's lesser known anime, I think. I'm not sure. And then the other one actually does it professionally, and she does various accents, and she actually does games as well, but she's done voices for other things, and she is amazing. And what's really cool with both of them is you don't even realize it's that person doing the voice, even though normally with a lot of people when they're doing an accent from somewhere else, And you still hear the timbre of their voice that is uniquely their own voice. Like, you guys know the sound of my own voice, whereas these two are both able to pitch their voice and change the texture of it enough that when you're listening, you don't even realize it's the same person. A bit of the vocal flavour, yeah, often sprinkled in. For most people it is. These two seem to somehow have it in such a way where you perceive less of that than most other voice actors that I have come across and regularly been hearing. I don't know how they do it. They just can. It's amazing. I would love to be able to do that, but I can't even do a normal accent. I can sound ever so slightly posh and slightly English, or I can sound ever so slightly working class and slightly English, or I can sound my random as Kiwi. Working class? No, not Glassons. Class. Glassons is a clothing brand in New Zealand. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the raid. Thank you for your time and the fun. It has been so much fun today. Yeah. It is impressive that the snows. It may be because I've got my language currently set to New Zealand English. I don't know. It's really weird. It's a bit like if I'm using Google Maps and I'm getting it to tell me where I'm going because I've chosen New Zealand English. It will get some of the Maori place names reasonably correct. The vowels are still mangled, but nowhere near as badly. Whereas your average stuff is usually way off sideways when it comes to trying to read Maori place names. Completely unrecognizable to someone who's actually used to accents. Anyway, so we're gonna finish there for today. I will tell you what the next chapter is called, just to bait you in for next time. It's not called chapter 27, but it is chapter 27, and it's called Dash for Liberty. So I'm guessing that means that Tom is going to try to escape. How he's going to find the others, I don't know, without the Baxters finding out where this mine is meant to be either. It's really, really weird. Anyway, so we are going to see you next time. Thank you for the fun. Thank you for the company. And look after yourselves. Be kind to yourself. Drink lots of water. And next time, more drinking. Yes, hopefully. Hopefully there'll be a lot more drinking. Because we should have more of minor for a start. We haven't had house for a while. So there's got to be a hang of a lot of house in the last part of the book. Because we didn't have it a lot at the beginning. I don't know. It's a bit odd, that, because I know it was a fairly high count number. We'll see you next time. Happy reading. Bye.